Hi, welcome to Mama's Natural. I'm your host, Rusty Red. This is my second video in my introductory series, and this video I'm going to talk a little bit about my pregnancy experience with my son, Asher. He's almost 3 years old. When we first found out we were pregnant with him, it was actually, I had discovered it first by myself. I've always had hormonal and menstrual issues, so I've never been able to really time and predict when my menstrual cycle was going to happen. So being 2 weeks early or 2 weeks late was not a big surprise for us. And at the time, my libido has been very low for most of my life, so it was really easy to predict which time we conceived on. So the interesting, cool thing was our dog, we have 4 dogs, of course, and my husband has a Malinois. Her name is Luna. She's always been fairly maternally instinctive, and the cool thing was she actually alerted and indicated that I was pregnant before I even thought to take any tests. Actually, it was about 4 days after we had potentially conceived, which is interesting because the body, once you conceive, the egg implants, and that's when your body starts to change its hormones, and dogs can sense and smell those hormonal changes, and that's what she alerted off of. So we had to have conceived very quickly after intercourse. It was kind of cool to see this dog. So this dog, a little quick backstory on her, she is very much a daddy's dog. She's very much a Malinois to the core. Anybody who's familiar with the breed, they tend to be very attached. They love their family, but they attach very much to one particular person, and that was my husband. And so she was always at his feet, always hovering around him, hanging out with him, whatever room he was in, she was in. So to have her all of a sudden switch and just wouldn't leave my side, kept bunting me in the belly and the lower abdomen, and kept just cramming her nose up my crotch all the time. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I must be pregnant or something else. But I'm like, it's not even possible. I didn't think it was possible only a couple days after intercourse for a dog to detect pregnancy already. It's like my body doesn't even totally know yet, or does it? So I'm like, okay, well, it's way too early to tell. And she could just be being a quirky Malinois thing that she's doing. But a couple weeks later, I'm now a few weeks late, and she's still doing this. So I'm like, okay, maybe I'm pregnant. So I took a test, came back negative. It took until I was 6 weeks pregnant to get a test to even come back positive. So this dog knew I was pregnant 6 weeks before any of the tests were able to come back positive. And even when we finally went into the professional, they said it was a very fine line. My body was just not putting out the hormones as much or as early as normal for pregnancy. But it was a very, very faint but detectable pregnancy. And it wasn't until later that we discovered how far along I was at that time. So that was really cool having a dog actually alert to that. So once I found out, I hadn't even told my husband yet, because I didn't want to get his hopes up. We had thought I was pregnant before, but with my menstrual cycles, it just ended up not being the case. So I didn't want to get him thinking, oh my gosh, we might be pregnant, and then find out we're not. So when I found out, we actually had been having a problem with our plumbing at the house. I was middle of bathing a dog, and all of a sudden my sprayer just started spitting sand all over the dog. And come to find out, the PVC pipe that is the well going down into the ground, it actually spiral cracked, and so all the sand was bypassing the filter and just coming right into the water. And that really was stressing my husband out, because they hadn't actually told us how much that cost was going to be to fix that yet. So my husband was kind of hyperventilating. In starting our business, the first 5 years is really hard on a business, especially because you're still trying to get all the better equipment up and running, be more efficient. So your money is pretty much just pouring right back into the business. So we did not really have much money saved away. So I had to hold on and wait for a week to tell him that we were pregnant. And that was the hardest thing, because I am horrible at keeping secrets. Even as a kid with Christmas, I always ended up failing at keeping a secret what I bought everybody, and I would tell them before. So it was hard for me to keep that a secret for a week. But when I finally told him, I had all the dogs I took them out, I lined them up in the yard, and I clipped tags to their collars, and that I hand wrote. We have 4 dogs. My Vizsla, Nora, she's always excited licking. If she gets happy or excited or meets somebody new, she just has to lick, lick, lick. Just kind of her personality. So she got dubbed the Boo-Boo Kisser. Then there's my husband's Dutch Shepherd, Onyx, and she is the most food ravenous, obsessed dog I've ever seen. And she's not She's not fat and she's not skinny. She's a nice perfect weight. For whatever reason, she just is a sucker for food. And so we named her the cleanup crew. And then my husband's Malinois, I labeled as the cry detector. She was always very, very concerned when babies would cry at the store. We brought the dogs to work with us a lot. And anytime babies would cry, it was just, oh, she'd get this very sensitive, delicate look on her face, and her ears would be kind of cocked down to the side like, aw. Just the cutest thing, almost like what a mama dog would do when she's looking for one of her puppies crying in the box, in the whelping box. It was just the cutest thing. And then there's my English Shepherd. He's the only male of our dogs, and he's like all black except for a little bit of white on his feet and a smidge on his chest and on like a snip on his nose. So he's like the dark dog looming in the shadows all the time. He's always the dog that's just kind of in the background, just watching everything. So his tag said, I saw the whole thing. So anyway, so I lined them up and I had them sit and stay, and I brought my husband out, and at first he didn't get it, but when I pulled out the pregnancy test, he almost passed out. I would share the video, but to respect him, I'm not going to share it. But he was legit like freaked out, almost passed out, mainly because of the financial stress that we had just gone through. We just had to pay for this huge expense, and now, of course, the first thing coming to his mind is, oh my gosh, now there's this other expense coming up with a child, a new baby. So once he got through that, though, we were able to kind of join together and be excited together and share in that. And so as far as pregnancy goes, my pregnancy was really easy. It was about as dream of a pregnancy as it goes for the first 3/4 of the pregnancy. I didn't have any morning sickness. I had a little bit of, well, not really little, I guess I had some major food cravings. It was mainly salads, though. I could not eat anything but salads. All I wanted was to just hork salads down all day, every day. And so I tried to make sure I got my protein in my salads and a nice mix of like nuts and different things in my salads as much as I could. But that was like the only thing I could bring myself to eat for the entire 9-month pregnancy. Needless to say, I'm not really the biggest fan of salads these days, but it was good and helpful for a healthy pregnancy. And so really it just was a nice, smooth pregnancy. I don't think it really became real until I actually got the gender reveal ultrasound, and I actually got to see that there was more than just this little jelly bean. There was arms and legs and fingers defining, and there was a face. And the creepiest thing was, in this ultrasound, our son literally turned and like looked right at the ultrasound machine. It was like the creepiest face on shot. But it was really cool getting to see that and experience that there's really something going on. And that was about the time I was starting to feel the first flutters and, just like, oh my gosh, this is actually happening. So the rest of the pregnancy went really smooth. And then my husband had decided to take on more work that fall. He had started working at Firekeepers Casino to try to bring in some more income with the baby and everything coming. And so he was a dealer for them, working night shifts. And when you're working night shifts and you're not used to that, it can be kind of a shock to your system, and it can lower your immunity. As well as we were right during flu season when he contracted the flu at work and brought it home. And so here I am. I was about 38 weeks pregnant at the time, and I'm taking care of my husband with the flu. This was not the man flu. This was legit knocked him off his butt flu. He was passing out a lot and throwing up everywhere. It was legit kind of scary a little bit. I was borderline wanting to take him into the hospital because I just wasn't sure. And so I stayed up nights at 38 weeks pregnant, sitting on the floor with him in the bathroom. He was puking his poor guts out, and I was doing charcoal poultice wraps around his neck and having him drink charcoal water and take vitamin C and all these different things to try to help him feel better and kick this thing. So he was down for about a week. And then, lo and behold, of course, I contracted the flu, which I never really get the flu, so this was kind of weird for me, but I guess because he had it so bad, that was kind of what caused me to get it. And it was a pretty decent. I don't usually get sick, and when I do, it's usually not that big of a deal, but this was a legit thing. So here I am, now 39 weeks pregnant, and going into week 40, and I am sicker than a dog. I mean, I'm coughing my guts out. My ribs felt like they all had broke, because at this time baby's pushing on ribs and I'm coughing and hacking, and I felt like my body was just breaking. But fortunately he stayed in the womb till like 42 plus weeks, so I was sick, lingering cough after I got rid of the initial virus. up until 42 weeks. I think it was a few days before he was born that the cough just out of the blue just stopped. And I mean, this was like gut-wrenching cough. So I was a little bit panicked about how I was going to go through contractions while coughing with body-racking coughs. But it ended up working out very well. And I'm glad he stayed in a little bit longer because it allowed him to be in the protective womb and benefit from my immunity from the flu before he even came out. So that was definitely an interesting experience. So yeah, literally the cough ended like right before he was born, which was just great. So I'm going to wrap up this video here, and in the next video, I'm going to share my labor and delivery experience with our son. So stay tuned, like, subscribe, and in the comments below, share with me, how was your first pregnancy? Was it what you expected? Did you have a lot of complications, or did it go really smooth? We'll see you in the next video.